I was standing in front of the mirror in my wedding dress, feeling like I was living in a fairy tale. The ivory silk fell perfectly around me, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy about my upcoming wedding to Marcus. That is until my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "We need to talk about the wedding guest list." My stomach immediately dropped. I knew exactly what this conversation was going to be about, and I knew it was not going to be easy. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever felt like the forgotten child in your family. Trust me, the story is going to take some unexpected turns that you will not see coming. Growing up in my family was like living in the shadow of a golden statue. My older brother Tyler, who is 30 now, was the family's pride and joy from the moment he could walk. While Tyler got enrolled in private school piano lessons and tennis camps, I learned early on that I would have to make my own way in this world. By the time I was 16, I was working part-time at the local grocery store to save money for college, while Tyler had everything handed to him on a silver platter. The differences in our treatment were not subtle. When Tyler crashed Dad's car during his senior year of high school after a night of partying, Dad bought him a brand new Honda Civic the very next week. When I asked to borrow the family car for my part-time job 2 years later, I was told that I needed to learn responsibility first. When Tyler wanted to go to law school, Mom and Dad paid his full tuition without question. When I applied for college, I had to work 3 jobs and apply for every scholarship available just to make ends meet. Despite all of this favoritism, I tried to maintain a relationship with my family. I thought that maybe as we got older, things would change. Maybe Tyler would mature, and maybe my parents would finally see that they had been treating us differently all along. But Tyler only got worse as the years went on. Success in his law career seemed to inflate his ego even more, and he became increasingly narcissistic and entitled. The final straw came 2 years ago when Tyler asked to borrow $3,000 from me. He claimed he needed it for a down payment on his new apartment, and he promised to pay me back within 6 months. I was hesitant because I had been saving that money for my own future. But family is family, right? I lent him the money. 2 years later, I am still waiting for a single penny of it back. Every time I brought it up, Tyler would brush me off or make excuses about cash flow issues, despite the fact that he was making 6 figures as a lawyer. When my phone rang that afternoon, I already knew what my mother Linda was calling about. Her voice was tight with disapproval as soon as I answered. "Christy, we need to discuss the guest list for your wedding. I noticed that Tyler was not included in the invitations you sent out last week." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm and steady. "Mom, I made the decision not to invite Tyler, and I have very good reasons for it." "Good reasons?" Her voice pitched higher. "He is your brother, Christy. What possible reason could you have for excluding him from your own wedding?" I reminded her about what happened at my friend Sarah's wedding just 6 months earlier. Tyler had shown up drunk, spent the entire reception hitting on the bridesmaids, despite them clearly being uncomfortable, and eventually caused such a scene that security had to escort him out. The bride's family was mortified, and Sarah was so upset that she cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. "Mom, he completely ruined Sarah's special day. I am not going to risk him doing the same thing at my wedding." Linda's response was exactly what I expected. "Oh, Christy, he was just having fun. You are being way too dramatic about this. Boys will be boys, and Tyler just gets a little carried away sometimes." I also brought up the $3,000 he still owed me, thinking that might help her understand why I did not want him at the most important day of my life. But instead of acknowledging that Tyler had been irresponsible, she turned it back on me. "Family forgives, Christy. Do not be so petty about money. You make good money at your job, so it is not like you are struggling. Tyler is your brother, and he deserves to be at your wedding." The conversation continued to spiral downward from there. Every valid concern I raised was dismissed or minimized. Every example I gave of Tyler's poor behavior was excused or blamed on external circumstances. After 30 minutes of going in circles, Linda hung up on me in frustration, leaving me standing in my kitchen, feeling like I had been hit by a truck. When Marcus came home from work that evening, he found me sitting on our couch still in my wedding dress with tears streaming down my face. Marcus is a software engineer, logical and thoughtful, and he has always been my biggest supporter. He sat down next to me and listened as I recounted the entire conversation with my mother. "Babe, you know I support whatever decision you make, but I have to say I am proud of you for standing your ground," he said, taking my hand. "I have seen how Tyler treats you, and I have seen how your parents enable his behavior. Our wedding day should be about celebrating our love with people who genuinely care about us and want to see us happy. Marcus reminded me of the family dinner we had attended just 3 months earlier, where Tyler had spent the entire evening making snide comments about my career choice, my appearance, and even my relationship with Marcus. When I finally stood up for myself, Tyler laughed and said I was being too sensitive while my parents just sat there in uncomfortable silence. It is our day, babe. We invite people who genuinely care about us and who will add joy to our celebration. Tyler has never added joy to anything in your life. Even though Marcus's words made perfect sense, and even though I knew I was making the right decision, I still felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I knew this was just the beginning of the battle with my family, and I was not sure I was prepared for what was coming next. My instincts about what was coming proved to be absolutely correct. Within 24 hours of my conversation with Mom, my phone was ringing off the hook. The first call came from my father, Robert, at 7 in the morning, waking both Marcus and me from a deep sleep. "Christy, what the hell is wrong with you?" Dad's voice boomed through the phone so loudly that Marcus could hear every word from his side of the bed. "How dare you exclude your brother from your wedding? This is the most selfish, immature thing you have ever done." I tried to explain my reasoning to Dad just as I had to Mom, but he was not interested in hearing any of it. According to him, family comes first no matter what, and any issues Tyler and I had should be worked out after the wedding, not before. When I mentioned the money Tyler owed me, Dad actually laughed. $3,000, that is pocket change, Christy. You're really going to destroy your family over pocket change. The fact that $3,000 was definitely not pocket change for me, and that it represented months of careful saving seemed to be completely lost on him. The conversation ended with Dad slamming the phone down after telling me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But the phone calls were just the beginning. Tyler himself started sending me text messages, and they were not the kind of messages you would expect from someone who supposedly wanted to celebrate my upcoming marriage. The text started out manipulative, with Tyler claiming that he was devastated and heartbroken, that his little sister did not want him at her wedding. But when I did not respond to those messages, they quickly turned nasty. He called me selfish, ungrateful, and jealous of his success. He said I had always been bitter about the attention he received from our parents, and that I was using my wedding as a way to get revenge. He even suggested that Marcus was probably behind my decision, trying to turn me against my own family. The messages came at all hours of the day and night, and each one was more hurtful than the last. 3 days after the initial phone call with Dad, Mom showed up at our apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there with red, puffy eyes and a box of tissues in her hand. She pushed past me into our living room and immediately launched into an emotional plea. "Christy, you are tearing this family apart," she sobbed. "Your father has not eaten in 2 days. Tyler is absolutely heartbroken. How can you do this to us? How can you do this to the family that raised you and loved you?" I tried to remain calm and rational, explaining once again that this decision was not about punishing anyone, but about protecting my special day from potential drama. I reminded her of Tyler's track record at family events and social gatherings. But Mom was not interested in listening to logic. She was operating purely on emotion and guilt. "After everything we have done for you, this is how you repay us, by cutting your own brother out of the most important day of your life." She stayed for over an hour, alternating between crying and lecturing me about family loyalty. When she finally left, I felt emotionally drained and questioned whether I was making the right choice. But Marcus reminded me that manipulation tactics often make you doubt yourself, even when you know you are right. The pressure campaign expanded beyond just my immediate family. My cousin Jessica called to tell me how disappointed Grandma would have been if she were still alive. My Aunt Patricia sent me a long email about the importance of forgiveness and family unity. Even some family friends reached out to express their shock at my decision. But the worst part was when Tyler decided to take his victim narrative public. He posted on Facebook about how heartbroken he was that his sister did not want him at her wedding, painting himself as the innocent party who just wanted to celebrate his family. The post got dozens of comments from relatives and family friends expressing sympathy for Tyler and disappointment in me. People who did not know the full story, who had never witnessed Tyler's behavior firsthand, were suddenly experts on our relationship and my wedding planning decisions. The comments ranged from passive-aggressive to outright critical, and seeing them felt like being attacked by a mob of people who were supposed to care about me. Throughout all of this, I felt increasingly isolated from my extended family. It seemed like Tyler's version of events was the only one that mattered, and my reasons for making this difficult decision were completely irrelevant. The only people who truly supported me were Marcus and my best friend Amanda, who was going to be my maid of honor. Amanda had known my family for years and had witnessed Tyler's behavior at multiple events. She reminded me of the time Tyler had made inappropriate comments about her appearance at a family barbecue and how uncomfortable he had made several of my friends feel over the years. Christy, anyone who knows Tyler understands exactly why you made this decision, she said. The people who are criticizing you either do not know the real Tyler or they are choosing to ignore his behavior because it is easier than holding him accountable. The final blow came exactly 2 weeks before my wedding date. It was a Thursday evening, and Marcus and I were having dinner and going over some last-minute wedding details when there was a loud knock at our door. When I opened it, I found both of my parents standing there with grim expressions on their faces. "We need to talk," Dad said, pushing past me into our apartment without being invited in. What followed was essentially an ultimatum disguised as a family meeting. Mom and Dad sat on our couch like they were conducting a business negotiation with Tyler, waiting in their car outside. I could see him through our window leaning against the passenger door with a smirk on his face. "Here is how this is going to work," Dad announced. "Either Tyler gets invited to this wedding, or your mother and I are not coming. And furthermore, we are cutting you off completely. No more birthday gifts, no more Christmas visits, no more family dinners. You will be completely on your own." Mom nodded along with every word, adding her own emotional manipulation to the mix. "You will regret this for the rest of your life, Christy. Family is all you have in this world. Jobs come and go, friends come and go, but family is forever. Do not throw that away over your petty jealousy." I looked at Marcus, who gave me an encouraging nod, and then I took a deep breath before responding. "I understand that this is your decision to make, and I respect your right to choose not to attend my wedding. But I am not changing my mind about Tyler." The look of shock on their faces suggested that they had fully expected me to cave under the pressure. Dad's face turned red with anger, and Mom started crying again. They spent another 20 minutes trying different approaches: guilt, anger, bargaining, threatening, but I stood firm. After they left, I completely broke down. Despite knowing that I was making the right choice, it was devastating to realize that my parents were willing to miss my wedding over this issue. Marcus held me while I cried, reassuring me that we would get through this together and that our wedding would still be beautiful and meaningful. "The people who truly love and support you will be there," he said, "and that is all that matters." The morning of my wedding arrived with perfect September weather. The sun was shining, there was a gentle breeze, and the garden venue looked absolutely stunning with all of the decorations in place. I had chosen to get ready at the venue itself, surrounded by Amanda and my other bridesmaids who did their best to keep my spirits up. Despite all of the family drama leading up to this day, I was determined to focus on the joy of marrying the love of my life. Marcus's family had been incredibly welcoming and supportive throughout our entire relationship, and his parents had even offered to help pay for some of the wedding expenses after my parents withdrew their financial support. The guest list had ended up being smaller than originally planned, but it was filled with people who genuinely cared about Marcus and me. My college roommates had flown in from different states, Marcus's coworkers and childhood friends were there, and even some family members who had initially criticized my decision had come around after learning more about the situation. My Uncle Dave, who was my father's brother and had always been like a second father to me, had agreed to walk me down the aisle. Uncle Dave had stayed out of the family drama, but he privately told me that he supported my decision and understood why I had made it. As the ceremony time approached, I felt a mixture of sadness and excitement. I was heartbroken that my parents had chosen not to be there, but I was also excited to marry Marcus, surrounded by people who truly loved and supported us. The processional music began and my bridesmaids started walking down the aisle. Amanda gave me one final hug and whispered, "You look absolutely beautiful and you are making the right choice." Then it was my turn. Uncle Dave offered me his arm with a warm smile. "Ready to marry that wonderful man of yours?" he asked. I nodded, took a deep breath, and we began walking toward the altar where Marcus was waiting for me, with tears of joy in his eyes. The ceremony was about halfway through when I heard a commotion from the back of the garden. At first I thought maybe a late guest had arrived, but then I heard raised voices and saw our guests turning around in their seats with shocked expressions on their faces. To my absolute horror, I saw my parents and Tyler marching down the aisle toward the altar. Tyler was clearly intoxicated, stumbling slightly, and speaking far too loudly for the solemn occasion. Mom was crying and calling my name while Dad looked furious and determined. "Stop this ceremony right now," Tyler shouted, causing everyone in attendance to gasp. "This wedding is a joke without family. Christy, stop being ridiculous and invite me properly." Dad joined in, his voice booming across the garden. "Christy, stop this nonsense and include your brother. This is not how we raised you." The officiant, who was a friend of Marcus's family, looked completely bewildered by what was happening. Our guests sat in stunned silence, unsure of how to react to such an unprecedented disruption. Marcus stepped forward, positioning himself protectively in front of me, ready to handle the situation. But before Marcus could say anything, I surprised everyone, including myself, by taking control of the situation. I walked over to the microphone that the officiant had been using and picked it up with steady hands. "Excuse me," I said, and my voice carried clearly across the entire garden. The three family members who had just crashed my wedding stopped their shouting and looked at me with surprise. What happened next was a moment I had been building up to for years without even realizing it. Standing there in my wedding dress, surrounded by people who loved and respected me, I finally found my voice in a way I never had before. "Mom, Dad, and Tyler, you made a choice 2 weeks ago. You chose to prioritize Tyler's feelings over mine. You chose to threaten and manipulate me instead of respecting my decision. You chose to abandon me rather than support me on the most important day of my life." My voice was firm and clear, and I could see that our guests were hanging on every word. Even Tyler had stopped his drunken rambling and was staring at me with a shocked expression. "Today I am making a choice too. I am choosing my real family. I am choosing the people who respect my boundaries, who support my decisions, and who want to see me happy. You are not welcome here." I gestured to Marcus's groomsmen, who immediately understood what I was asking. Along with venue security, they began escorting my parents and Tyler back down the aisle and off the property. As they were being removed, I heard scattered applause from our guests, which quickly grew into enthusiastic clapping from everyone in attendance. The officiant looked at me with admiration and asked if I was ready to continue the ceremony. I nodded, handed the microphone back to him, and turned to face Marcus, who was looking at me with a mixture of pride and love that I had never seen before. "That," he whispered as I took his hands again, "was the most incredible thing I have ever witnessed." The rest of our wedding ceremony was absolutely perfect. After the dramatic interruption had been handled, there was an electricity in the air that made everything feel more meaningful and special. When Marcus and I exchanged vows, his words about standing by me through any challenge felt incredibly powerful, given what had just happened. Our guests seemed to rally around us even more after witnessing the family drama. During the cocktail hour, person after person came up to congratulate me, not just on the marriage, but on how I had handled the situation with grace and strength. Marcus's mother pulled me aside during the reception to officially welcome me to their family. "I have never seen someone handle a crisis with such dignity," she said. "We are so lucky to have you as a daughter." It was the kind of unconditional support I had always craved from my own parents. My best friend Amanda gave a speech during dinner that brought tears to my eyes. She talked about watching me grow from someone who always tried to please everyone into someone who knew her own worth and was not afraid to protect it. "Today, we did not just witness Christy marry the love of her life," she said. "We witnessed her fully step into her power as a person." The celebration went on late into the night, filled with dancing, laughter, and joy. Every single person who was there had chosen to be there because they cared about Marcus and me, and that made everything feel more genuine and meaningful than any obligation-based celebration could have been. In the weeks following our wedding, the aftermath of my decision continued to unfold in ways I had not expected. Several relatives reached out to apologize for their initial reactions and to share their own stories about Tyler's behavior over the years. My cousin Jessica called to tell me that Tyler had borrowed money from her too and had never paid it back. Apparently, his financial irresponsibility was a pattern that extended far beyond just his relationship with me. Even more surprising was the reaction to Tyler's original Facebook post. After our wedding, several people began commenting with their own experiences with Tyler. Former classmates shared stories about his entitled behavior in college. Former girlfriends talked about his narcissistic tendencies in relationships. The narrative that he had tried to create about being the innocent victim began to crumble as more people felt empowered to speak their truth. My parents made a few attempts to reconcile in the months after the wedding, but they were not willing to acknowledge that their behavior had been wrong or that Tyler needed to take responsibility for his actions. They wanted me to apologize for embarrassing them and to pretend that the whole situation had never happened. I realized that this was the same pattern that had played out throughout my entire childhood. Tyler would behave badly, I would be expected to accommodate that behavior, and my parents would smooth everything over without ever addressing the root issues. Breaking that cycle was one of the most difficult but important things I had ever done. Marcus and I built a beautiful life together, without the constant drama and manipulation that had characterized my relationship with my family of origin. Our first year of marriage was filled with adventures, personal growth, and the kind of peace that comes from being surrounded by people who truly love and respect you. The experience taught me that setting boundaries is not about being cruel or vindictive. It is about protecting your own mental health and well-being, so that you can show up as your best self for the people who matter most. It taught me that real family is not just about shared DNA, but about shared values, mutual respect, and genuine care for each other's happiness. I learned that you cannot control how other people react to your boundaries, but you can control how you respond to their reactions. Some people will try to guilt you, manipulate you, or punish you for standing up for yourself. But the people who truly love you will respect your decisions, even if they do not always understand them. Looking back now, I realize that my wedding day was not just about marrying Marcus. It was about finally choosing myself and my own happiness over the dysfunctional patterns that had defined my family relationships for so many years. It was about recognizing that I deserved to be surrounded by people who celebrated me, rather than people who constantly criticized and undermined me. Sometimes the family you choose loves you better than the one you were born into. And that is not a tragedy, it is a gift. It is the gift of recognizing your own worth and refusing to settle for relationships that diminish, rather than enhance your life. As I finish sharing this story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family expectations and your own well-being? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I would love to hear about your experiences. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating difficult family dynamics and choosing yourself. Remember, you deserve relationships that lift you up, not tear you down. Here is to choosing the family that chooses you back. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video.